Hi there, YouTube. This is the Magnus, bringing you another Total War Warhammer online ladder battle. Today I chose to play as the Wood Elves again, and my opponent chose Chaos. Now, there's going to be a little lesson in this one, but I promise it's going to be a lot of fun as well, not just the learning experience. Let's take a look at my build here. I decided to go with two Eternal Guard with shields. I would like to have all shields, but I didn't have the money. Along with 4 Treekin as my front line. So it goes, Treekin, Eternal Guard, Treekin, Eternal Guard, etc., etc. For my archer units, I went with 2 of the Starfire Shafts and 1 Hagbane Tip Glade Guard. Poison being applied more than once, as one of my viewers pointed out to me, is not necessarily a good thing. And since I usually focus fire, it's better to have 1 to poison them and 2 to get that extra damage through if they happen to have armor, which with Chaos just about everybody does. I have a Branch Wraith for doing a little bit of healing there, and I have a flying contingent of the female Glade Lord on her dragon, and with her I have 2 of the Hawk Riders. So we'll see how that works out. Let's take a look at my opponent's build. Chaos Marauders as a front line, always a good thing. They're a lot more survivable now than they used to be, and they are cheap at $3.75 a pop. Behind that, he has 2 Dragon Ogres, very tough units, and behind them 2 Chaos Warriors, and then in the rear he has 2 Chaos Warriors with great weapons, flanked by 2 Chaos Warriors with halberds, and Archaon the Ever-Chosen. And just looking at my opponent's build right away, what I saw was a build intended for facing the standard, or if there is a standard yet, what most people are doing with the Wood Elves, which is lots of Treekin, Treeman, Durthu, that very tanky tree thing. And I get that from the fact that he has these Dragon Ogres, which are obviously geared towards that, and Archaon with his fire abilities are obviously going to be good against that. So my build is not in that vein. I do have 4 Treekin, but I don't have Durthu, I don't have Tree Men and all that stuff. And that's where in this game, being contrarian is very useful, because people, if I play the Wood Elves or I play Chaos or anybody differently than everybody else, or the majority of the field, most people are going to bring an army expecting me to do the standard, and I can get some advantage from that. So let's see if it works out for me today in this battle. So of course I keep my infantry back. I just try to find some favorable terrain, and that's going to give more time for my flying crew here to do the standard harass. And I start off, I pick on these Dragon Ogres for a while before I realize, hey, Archaon would be a pretty darn good target, and I do switch over. And to be contrarian, you don't have to, I'm not saying go out and build an army out of complete junk. Don't say, oh, well, it's very contrarian to bring all chariots. You'll get murdered, right? You still have to bring a sensible army with cost-effective units, but maybe not the most cost-effective, or just not, the most popular way of doing things, or the easiest way of doing things. The Glade Guard are pretty tanky, or Eternal Guard are pretty tanky, not, Treekin Tree Men. And having the flying can be very effective, especially if your opponent doesn't bring flying, because look, I'm able to shoot him the whole way across the field, and there's not a whole lot he can do about it. There's not anything he could do about it. And so contrarian does not mean bringing garbage. It just means bringing a different composition than most people are, because now, how effective are his Dragon Ogres against me? Not very, right? Sure, they'll work on my dragon and whatnot, but their intended purpose isn't here. And the same thing with Archaon and his fire. It can affect my Treekin, sure, and my Branch Wraith, I believe. Yes, definitely the Branch Wraith, but not the wide applicability that he was expecting. being able to take down my Lord with it, or being able to take down my my tough treeman. So it just kind of gives you an advantage. It gives you an edge, and it definitely gives you the element of surprise. Instead of him coming in, you know, he comes in with this build. And I'm not talking about this player specifically. I'm saying anybody that, you know, plays the standard meta. He comes in not only with a build, but a plan in his head as to how he's going to get rid of Durthu, and how he's going to get rid of my healer, and how he's going to, you know, deal with the trees and everything like that. And then he comes in and he sees this. Well, he needs to formulate an entirely different battle plan ad hoc, you know, in the moment, right away. No, you know, no time to sit and think about it. I do use the net ability to pin down Archaon, just not necessarily to pin him down, but I used it because of the extra missile damage that he eats because of it. And he's now he's going to approach my line, and you know, I've got terrain advantage here. He's had to run the whole way across the field the entire time. Doesn't want to slow down. Wants to get here as quickly as possible, and he's going to have to charge uphill. So we're going to start off firing at what's in range, you know, which is just these Chaos Marauders. Going to soften them up pretty nicely with some volleys here. But as soon as we can, of course, we're gonna get on Archaon and try to finish him off very early into the engagement. And it looks like he's not sure what to do with the guy. Do I run towards these archers or run towards these archers? You know, what's going to be best for him? I don't think he knows necessarily. Probably try to get some spells off. But so now we finally have an engagement on the line. The Treekin are going up against his Dragon Ogres. Over here we'll see some Eternal Guard with shields fighting Chaos Marauders. Here again, Chaos Marauders, but this time Eternal Guard with shields as well. I put the ones without shields out on the flank, and just kind of watch and see how the infantry engagement goes. But you see, he's not obviously, you know, with Archaon and this Dragon Ogre, he's going to do a decent number on these Treekin. He definitely is. But over here, where it's just, you know, head to head, not that great considering he paid twice as much. So I like what I see there. Now, I'm late realizing that these guys over on my right flank are never going to be engaged, and I really need to roll them in, especially the center here where my Treekin failed, and I still haven't finished freaking Archaon. I decided to soften these guys up, and I have the air units continue to fire at Archaon, because they were having some LOS issues here too, with the Branch Wraith getting in the way and whatnot. So now I'm going to roll my missiles down here. I'm going to do it preemptively, knowing he's going to be coming through my line soon. You never want to wait till the last second to get your archers moving, because they'll be dead before anything. Speaking of dead, Archaon joins the dead, no longer with us. And I'm going to pull back, you know, one of my infantry here to try to deal with this. Then I decide, no, I'll just have the Branch Wraith chase it, and then bring the flying crew over. Plus I have these guys recovering that I can get involved here. And then I just start firing into his largest mass over here, but then I'm going to quickly turn net, well, I say net, but it's called the prey, I'll call it, because I won't have to pronounce that every time. And we net down these Dragon Ogres, and we just start firing away at them. You know, and they're going to get shot from 4 different angles. Not a good situation. And we're going to bring in the Treekin in case they do better than I expect, which they're not. They're getting murdered. And so you're going to see just another, you know, choice unit of his that gets wiped out. Over here, he's definitely winning the infantry engagement. Over here, I'd say he's winning. we've got this Chaos Warrior pinned down pretty well, but these guys are all running rampant. I do start to get a little nervous at this point because I realize my entire line's breaking down for the most part, except for this little core here, and we have a holdout on the far left. And, you know, I start to realize my archers are going to have trouble being protected. But, you know, I still have this completely untouched Treekin. I've got this beat up Treekin. This guy will probably reform soon. And my dragon is now, my lady is now out of arrows. So she's going to come in and use her dragon to its full effect. And the Forest Dragon is really good when you have a Lord on it. When you just pay 2,000 for one, not good at all. So here comes the other Dragon Ogre, his other power unit, and again he's going to get shot from 4 different directions. Poison arrows, armor piercing arrows, fire arrows, just about everything. Then we're going to bring in the dragon to make sure he doesn't try to come this way. He just opts to go this way, but it's not going to do him any good. There's just too much damage coming in here for him to really resist. A lot of his infantry's in flight. The guys who retreated earlier are returning. but I've got these two men I can pull over. And again, I feel very much in control. I take a look at the bar. Things are in my favor. And more so with this faction, the Wood Elves, than others, I'm definitely finding you have to try to resist panicking and freaking out. If you go with a decent bit of skirmishers, your offensive line, your line of infantry is going to very often break. And for me, that used to freak me out, and I'd lose a lot because I'm like, oh God, I'm so screwed. But now I realize that that's part of it, and that I have to intelligently use my archers and my flying and my lords and my heroes to kind of overcome that, and you'll see that here. So the dragon in here trying to clean up. I also have the Hawk Riders are now out of ammunition, so they're going to come in. They have a nice armor-piercing melee attack. As you can see from their stats, they're not very good in melee, but they do pierce armor, which is going to help you out against the faction like Chaos. The Treekin still in there. These guys, like I've said before, extremely tanky, even when shot with their own arrows. A lot of friendly fire there at the end, but that's to be expected. So we get a close victory as the Wood Elves over Chaos, a matchup I haven't played before. I want to say good game to Zagawa. He's a good player. Brought an interesting little build that I feel would do well against most Wood Elves, but not the build that I brought. Let's take a look at the tail of the tape. The Eternal Guard, I feel, did fine. Not great, but it's not a matchup that's great for them. They don't have armor piercing, and fighting all these Chaos Warriors and whatnot, it's not going to do a lot for them. I really liked the results I got from my archers. We took out Archaon, we took out Dragon Ogres, and still managed to get some kills on the side, so very good. The Hawk Riders, Archaon, same story as my other archers, really. And the Treekin, again, I don't measure their success in kills. I measure it in how long they stuck around. And the answer is to the very end. That's what they're there for. Branch Wraith did some healing, did some fighting, did okay. I'd like to see some more kills, but, it kept everybody alive, and that's what I really want. And the Glade Lord was fantastic. She is one tough lady, especially up on that dragon. She can shoot well. She can fight well. She terrifies. It's pretty cool. Looking at Zagawa's troops here, the Chaos Marauders did fine. They're a good cost-effective matchup for the Wood Elf infantry, not the Treekin, but the actual Wood Elves, meaning Eternal Guard and things of that nature. And they probably do fine against some of the other infantry. They're just not going to have the power to chop down the Treekin very well. Chaos Warriors, a little underwhelming for the price. I would say the same with Chaos Warriors with great weapons and the Halberds. But again, the Halberds, we're expecting, we're part of this build expecting something completely different. So you'll notice, the units that were most dedicated to that, Archaon, the Halberds, and the Dragon Ogres were the most underwhelming because they were not designed, for this fight. They're not intended for this fight. So anyways, again, good game to my opponent. I hope you learned something. I hope you try out being contrarian. I think it'll do a lot for you. It opens up some avenues, and it makes for interesting battles with circumstances and situations that you don't normally see because you're playing different units. They're having to react to you and your unusual build. Like I said, don't go crazy. Don't pick the worst unit and think that's contrarian. No, it just means if everybody else is going heavy Treeman, heavy Treekin, you can have some Treekin or whatever, but use a Glade Lord or use Orion or something. Mix it up a little bit. You might be surprised by the results you get. And you might also not have as much, there's a lot of people in the forums that complain saying, oh, such and such faction always beats me, whatever, so-and-so needs nerfed or we need a boost. Well, if you're constantly going in with an army that your enemy 100% expects, and he has a build designed to shut down what you're bringing because you're bringing the most common composition that he could possibly expect, you're going to get bad results. Think about it. The deck is stacked against you before you even hit, I'm ready. So anyways, I hope you learned something. I hope you had some fun, enjoyed watching the video. If you did, please hit like, please hit subscribe. It's definitely a help. Until the next time, this is the Magnus, and I'll see you on the ladder.